Hey, it's Anthony Meisner at Land Title. I came to bring you your first to know update for Boulder County, so let's dive right in. If you take a look at this, I think stability, as we've been preaching for a while, has really been kind of the nature of the detached single family market. We're up 2% from this time last year, so slight increase, which is a good sign, especially in a market like this. Median 1.7% up to 885. We're just kind of tracking along with last year, and that's a really healthy sign for a challenging market, right? So if we look at the condo townhouse market, you can see it bounces around all over the place. We're substantially up on the average, which tells me there's been a lot of luxury sales in the last month. But the median is actually down 2.5%, which obviously raises a little bit of concerns. But as we've kind of talked through over time, there's a lot of challenges in this marketplace, right? So it's very much the tale of two markets. The attached market is struggling, where the detached market is very stable. And you can see it again in the average price per square foot. I mean, look at single family. If you look at the trend has been, we're right above where we were last year. We're right at where we were last year. It's very stable, even though we show minus 4.5%. You can see it bounces around pretty consistently just because of luxury sales. If we get a lot one month or not a lot another month, you kind of see that. But the condo market, you can see average price per square foot down to 420, better than it was over the last couple of months. So that's still a good sign that, like the floor hasn't fallen out of this market, but it is challenging, right? It's just so much inventory out there in this marketplace that has been forcing the prices to compress a little bit. Now, if we look at it by inventory, this really tells the picture. This is the most important part, right? We had 782 new listings come to market last month, the most we've had in years. And this is a huge surge in inventory. Only 11% more than this time last year. But if you remember back to last year, it was also surging inventory in the springtime. And that has created 1,357 units on the marketplace, a 35% rise compared to this time last year. So massive amounts of inventory. Already in April, we have reached the peak of what we had last year in August. So that's a tough one to swallow, especially when pending sales actually decreased month over month by about 2.9%. Seasonally, you would normally see April or May be our peak of the market. I do worry that March was the peak of the market, but we do have strong under contracts. So it's not like this isn't a strong month. This is a very strong month. We were 7% over last year, and last year was better than the previous couple of years as well. So great to see this. I just want to point out, maybe a cautionary word here. The biggest issue you're running into is we have almost 4 months of inventory, 35% more than a year ago, and that's really flirting with the peak of last year's market. So expect inventory to rise unless for some reason interest rates actually start to come down, which right now they just seem stable, which is not a bad thing. It's not going to fuel buyers coming back into the marketplace. Now, if we take a look at this, 43 days in MLS. We're only 1 day off from last year. So because there's more buyers, even with more sellers, it's still about the same feeling market. And I say it's about the same because look at the percentage listed sale price. We're only down 0.1% with massive amount more inventory and only 1 day different in the days in MLS. The last thing that is super important, do not disregard the showing traffic. Showing traffic tells so much of the story, right? So showings per listing, 5.4, right? We had 5.9 a year ago, minus 8.5%, but lots more listings to choose from, more buyers even, right? So with more buyers and more listings, it's just a little bit more competitive than it was. You can see it's taking a few more showings to go under contract than it did this time last year, 13.3. But, after a few months, you should be able to get those showings if you're selling a house. It just might take a little while to sell, which has kind of been the narrative we've seen for a while. It's just a little bit harder for sellers, not crazy, and it's fairly balanced, but we are definitely going to be leaving a balanced market very shortly, I have a feeling. So if you have any questions, concerns, you need local market data, don't hesitate to reach out to me. This is Anthony at Land Title. Catch you soon.